We'll hear from Liz Ross next, also running for Seat C.
Hi, well, there are a couple reasons I'm running. Majority of the reasons are my two young girls who will be entering the education system soon. I think we can do better for them in our education system. It's kind of backwards in the way we've been doing the same thing for the last 200 years. It's obvious parents want more choice. There's thousands of kids on the waiting list for charter schools, immersion programs, Montessori programs, and I think we can do better for the parents. I have 10 years experience working for the Department of Defense doing fiscal budgeting and plans, so I think I can help with the budget problems that we've had, just giving a new way to look at it. I think we can do smarter spending. I think redistricting needs to be addressed, and also looking into cutting out some of the programs we can outsource, such as facility maintenance. I want to increase a lot of the programs in the high schools as well, the career technical, the science, the math. We got to get kids out of the mentality that they have to either go to college or get out of school and do nothing. If we keep them in school and give them something to do after school, they're going to be better members of the community. I'm ready to make a change, and I think we need a change, and I'm the person to do it.
All right, thanks. So you're a newcomer, and I know you just explained a little bit about why you're running for school board, but was there something that prompted you, something specific? When did you decide? How did you decide to run?
Well, my daughter's going to be going to kindergarten in the fall, and I figure now's a better time than any. If I want to make a change and see a change in the way the school system's run, I might as well start.
So as you know, I'm sure the district is being forced to cut millions of dollars, and it's been for the past few years, and they just cut $23 million more this year. What should the district's response to this be?
Well, I think they're taking the right step at first and increasing the base student allocation and asking for that money. But you also need to get more than just a temporary fix. We need to come up with a plan for the future. If this money's going to be gone, then we have to figure out how we're going to spend with what we have. I think we need to take a good hard look at the budget and not focus on just the short-term problems, but the long-term as well, so we don't repeat this problem every 5 years.
And Governor Parnell's proposal to raise the base student allocation by $85 over 3 years, it's a step toward helping ASD get financially on strong ground, but is it enough?
No, I think the request of $404 that we've been asking for will be enough to fix it this time. But unless we inflation-proof it, it's just putting a Band-Aid on it. We're going to see the same problems.
So if it's not raised, how would you prioritize budget cuts?
Well, I do think the students and the teachers should get the priority. The most money needs to go into the classroom as we can. But there's some other things we can look at. The security officers in school. It's picked up by the school tab. It could be picked up by the municipality tab. They are police officers employed by the municipality. Also facility maintenance. If we can contract that out and kind of spread the wealth, that'll help save some money in the long run as well.
Most of what drives the district's budget right now are personnel costs and the health benefits, things like this. It's been reported that health benefits have been rising as much as 18% a year. Given that, what are your ideas for controlling or managing rising personnel costs?
I do think that's something we definitely need to look at. I'm not sure the healthcare benefit plan they have on the table right now is the smartest way to do it. It puts everyone on a one-size-fits-all healthcare program, and it doesn't give people choices of keeping the programs they have. So I definitely think that needs to be really looked at, and it's something that needs to be addressed in the future.
And as the largest school district in the state, should ASD have more control over their budget, yes or no? And with more control, what would you do differently?
Yes, I do believe they should have more control over their budget. They should be able to allocate the resources as they need to allocate them, not just, oh, well, we have this pot of money we have to spend in this certain place. To be able to funnel the money where it's needed most at that time would really help.
And I'd like to turn your attention now to performance. ASD adopted the Common Core standards in 2012. And this year, they're just coming into play. They're just seeing how they're working out. In your opinion, how are they working out, and what's your judgment of them?
Well, as any new thing, it needs time to adjust. You can't throw it in a school and expect it to exceed expectations in the first year. But I think it's a step in the right direction, kind of getting everybody across the country on the same page. We have such a large military population here. It's so transient. They switch schools so often. Knowing that if they're going to go to another school, they're going to be in the same level as they were from the school coming from, I think it will overall help our school district.
Over the past 5 years or so, we've seen the graduation rate slowly inching up, and we had a pretty good increase this year, and dropout rates just slightly down. And the district has been struggling with this for some time. What do you attribute this to? And do you think that the district can keep this up?
I think we can keep it up. I think some of the programs, the graduation coaches, which I believe they did have to cut this year, were an impact to that as well in keeping kids in school. But I think if we increase the amount of choices to keep kids in school, I think we'll do better. I actually went to school in high school in Sweden. I was an exchange student. And in 10th grade, they choose a track, either science, math, career technical, or a college track. And you focus on those classes and what you want to do when you get out of school. I really think it'll help them stay motivated and want to be in school if they know they have a career when they get out or something they want to do.
So as we know, some students in the Anchorage School District come to school and they have bigger worries than just figuring out their direction in class. Some don't have breakfast, some don't have warm clothes. Around half get free and reduced lunch in our district. Is the district doing enough to address these issues by providing clothes and food and so on and so forth, or can we do more?
I think the school district does an excellent job. I know so many teachers just have enough problems getting the kids up to base level. But I think we can also look for partnerships from nonprofits and bring them into the school to kind of work with them and help those kids who need help.
And what about English as a second language? I mean, it's been reported that there's around 100 different languages being spoken in our schools. Students many times are coming to school with the challenge of not being able to understand the teacher. What's your response to reduced funding for English as a second language programs, which have taken a hit over the past couple of years during cuts?
And I believe that's important. If they can't even understand what's being taught in the class, it's not benefiting them. And we need them to be able to go into school and learn as well, and not either hold the class back or be held back themselves. So I think those programs are very important. If we kind of look at the majority of the schools that they need them in and prioritize, I think we can manage to do that as well.
I guess if ASD were getting a report card from you, we're going to ask you a situational question here.
Okay.
How would you grade that? How would you grade the district? What grade would you give them on the report card? And what would they need to do to get an A?
I'd probably give them a C, which is an average grade. I think they're maintaining, but I think we can go beyond maintaining and kind of adapt and be more innovative and creative on how we address the school system, like the different programs, the immersion programs, what parents want. Obviously, there was a voucher issue on the table, which has been pulled right now. But people want choice. That's why this issue is being brought up. And if we can make the public schools the best that they can be, I think it'll help alleviate a lot of parents' concerns.
So since you brought up the voucher question, what's your stand on vouchers?
Well, I do believe the public funds should go to the public schools. But if enough parents want to change and want to take their kids out of public school, we're obviously doing something wrong, and we need to change it to make people want to be in the public school system.
As far as teachers go, are we recruiting the right amount of qualified teachers? And do you think we can continue to do that?
I think we can recruit them as long as we promise them job security. Every time they hear the word budget cuts, they're always afraid they're going to lose their jobs. And teachers are one of our most valuable assets in the community. We need to give them job security so they want to teach and can continue teaching without for fear of losing their job.
What about sports? There were some minor cutbacks during this year's budget cuts to sports, but they really have been spared. There is talk that parents may be required to pay for their children to participate in sports. Would you support that, or do you think there's another way?
I think there's another way. At the point you brought up before, a lot of the kids they don't have enough money for the school lunches, so that may exclude them from participating in the sports if we add an additional cost to them. I think sports are a great way to keep kids involved in school. It keeps kids out of trouble and gives them positive things to look forward to. So I'd like to avoid cutting the sports if we don't have to.
And how about vocational and technical education? It's been expanding over the past few years to fill a special role for students who are not pursuing college or for one reason or another. Is there too much or not enough focus on VOTEC?
I think there could be more focus on it. Currently, in our economy in Alaska, if you think about it, we need more welders than we do English professors. So to get kids in there and training so they can have a job after school, I think that's the right direction to go.
How about are our schools safe? And do you think they could be made safer, and how?
I think schools are pretty safe. I think the security officer in there does a good deal of help with it. And actually, this past year, I went in and did some training for active shooter, and we did make a recommendation to make sure the door is locked from the inside. I think you can always be more prepared, and there are always things you can do to make the school safer. But I think their emergency management plans are on the right track for that.
What about special education? It's also been hit pretty hard over the past few years of budget cuts. Is this impacting the district? Can it take any more cuts?
For the special education,
Special ed.
I'm not sure. We'd have to actually kind of look at that. I know there are specialized schools, and I think that's a good idea to bring the kids together so you can focus on that group of kids versus trying to do it one at a time, spread out in the different schools.
And what about state funding for private schools? You talked a little bit about that. I know you said you definitely think that we should be supporting our public schools, but there may be a constitutional amendment coming out. The legislature's deciding all of that. What's your stand? Can you be a little more detailed on that?
Okay. Well, I think if the vouchers do come to the table, because that's what the majority wants to happen, if they do vote on that, then there need to be some restrictions on how we spend it. Just saying, oh, we can give you a voucher, you can now go to any school that you want, is probably not the smartest answer. But if you do put restrictions, so schools can no longer exclude people based on income, race, and if they're going to go with those rules that we set in place, then they can take the vouchers. Vouchers don't necessarily have to be the worst thing that ever happened. It can spur creativity and innovation and make the school systems more competitive to improve schools overall. Personally, I believe that public funds should go to public schools, but if it does come to play, I think there's a smart way to do it.
And let's talk a little bit about your background. I know you said you had a background in financial management and working as an emergency manager. How will that apply to the job of school board member?
Well, as far as my work in plans, I write detailed emergency response plans. So instead of saying the fire department will respond, you write how they're going to do it, how long it should take, and set measurements to address if this plan is actually going to work. I think they could really use my expertise in that, especially when it comes to writing plans on how we're going to fix the school board and how things are going to happen. I can provide detailed explanations for that. Also managing budgets for the Department of Defense, they've hit a huge number of cuts. You get your budget cut into a third of what you had the previous year and still have to manage with emergency response, and I was able to do that. So I think I can put those skills to test with the school board.
And what about charter schools within the district? That's a different issue. We have several. They've been very successful. What do you know about them, and do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you want to see more or less?
I think they're a great idea. They've had huge success, and there's thousands of kids on a waiting list. I think almost all of them do a lottery system because there are so many kids wanting to get in there. I think we're definitely on the right track if you have a waiting list for something, and we need to increase it.
How about transportation to and from those schools? I know that's been an issue over the years.
Yeah, the parents have to do it themselves. Well, if we can get some of the programs integrated within the public schools as well, and also look at redistricting, then we may be able to support transportation in the future. Short term, I don't think it could be brought to the table with the budget issues, but definitely in the next few years, I think we could bring it to the table.
During cuts this year, the school board had to dig in. For the first time, they actually made an amendment to their own charter, and they dug into their savings in order to save some programs that were for kids kind of on the edge. Do you support that move? Are you critical of it? Would you do that?
Yes, I think I would have. The kids on the edge, if we let them go now and kind of don't pay attention to them, we're gonna end up paying for them in the future, whether they end up in the jail system or whatever. If they drop out of school, the society ends up paying for it in the future. So I think keeping the kids in school and interested and giving them their education is one of the most important things we can do as a community.
How about the role of culture in schools? I know there are many programs to make sure that culture is addressed and that we understand all the different cultures in the district. What do you see as a focus for culture in the district?
Well, Alaska is one of the most diverse schools in the country. We have we have kids coming from all over the place. I think it's really important to address it. I think we can do a lot with the nonprofits coming in and helping them address it, after school clubs, and kind of bringing it in and making it part of the education.
Thank you. That was Liz Ross, candidate for school board seat C.